the famous president of, if I say Oprah Winfrey, do I have to say, am I making sense? So you find out that those of us who don't understand that even in branding, there comes a time where you don't need to put your name anymore. That Nike doesn't even put his name on its products anymore. But it's very interesting if you look at the story of this particular thing, this particular logo. It actually came out from a man who was on death row. And they were asking, his name was, he was a horrible person. He had killed people. He was counts of murder. And he was executed in 1977 in Utah. And when they asked Gilmore for any last words, he said, just do it. That's the source of the word. Just do it. I mean, stop wasting time. Just do it. But the concept itself is really a good one. Because we talk a lot. And, you know, I do a lot of conferences, and I found out that Nigerians like talking more than doing. And those who are doing really don't have time to talk. I mean, I see people, there's a particular guy who I was telling Pastor Lumide, this guy goes around every startup competition he takes part. He's been taking part in startup competition for the last 5 years, and he's won a few. But what we find out that no matter how many he wins awards for, he's always applying for startup. So what he's simply doing is that he's collecting money from one competition and with an idea. He doesn't want to develop the idea. He doesn't want to see it fulfilled. He just wants to continue to, so he'll go from one competition to another, he will win. They will give him money. Instead of him to develop the product, take it to another level, he will go for another competition, he will win, he will take the money. You know what I mean? He had no intention of doing anything about it. He just wants to milk that. Interesting about this concept of just do it. And I want to, I'm sorry, this inspiring advert billboards all over the city. And they kept reminding everybody, yesterday you said tomorrow. And most of us do, all right? And so I want to walk you through this. Tomorrow you said they're going to start running. Tomorrow you said they're going to start writing a book. Some of them said, tomorrow I'm going to quit my job and start to first. How many of you remember that? People will gather in the hall, and at 12 o'clock we will all shout. But the problem is there was no difference between 11:59 and 12, you know, and 12:01 because it's man-made. Am I making sense? Are you here? So he said tomorrow is an illusion. If you go every day with the mindset of tomorrow I'll do this, I'll do that, those goals will always be a few steps away from your reach. The way to change is to do what you're saying you're going to do today. As a pastor, one of the things I find out is that you can share things in church and people say things like, oh, I've heard that truth, I'm going to go and do it sometime. But I found out that they never do it because the Bible tells me that immediately you get a seed, there's a devil waiting out there to steal it. And there are going to be circumstances that will choke the word out. Am I making sense? And one of the lessons I've learned is if I hear a truth, I must find a way of putting it into practice. Am I making sense? Are you here? Many years ago, I spoke about the fact that there was no distance in the spirit. I spoke about the fact that you need to build another altar. And we had this young guy from Ile-Ife. He just came into service. He wasn't even sure of his faith. We spoke in church. We shared, I was thinking about taking a message called Another Altar. And that message is about the fact that when this particular guy was called, God made him cut down his father's altar and build another altar. And many of us haven't done that in our Christian movement. And I began to explain that in church. This young man went home that afternoon, did exactly what we said he should do. His brother, who had been in a mental asylum in Arrow, he did what we asked him to do, what we shared in church. Go and break the covenant of your father and put another altar where your father built an altar. And he said he went home that afternoon and he did it. He says his brother, who had been in Arrow for months, called him out of the blues and said, I've come to my senses. I need to come home. And I thought to myself, we were about 250 that day, one person got up and did something about it. And I'm going to be showing this in the network service. What is the point of repentance if there is no hope? What's the point of asking for forgiveness if something good is not going to come out of it? What is the point of changing if I'm not going to benefit from it? I don't know if I'm making any sense. What's the point of hearing the word if you're not going to do it? Let's see if we can round this up. So this is the billboard they started at, and it became a runaway success. People were sharing it. It became an inspiration. People began to run around. All right? Now, the yesterday that you said tomorrow has already come. What are you going to do about it? Let's walk through a few things. If you are the kind of person that pushes things off to tomorrow, he's encouraging you to please stop. We have to stop. You know, my staff don't like it. Most people that I work with. I'm trying to develop a gym over there in the... Yesterday was an adventure for me. I'm trying to do a gym, so I asked Uza if he could paint it. He painted it, and it was like a very shoddy workmanship. And I wanted to open the gym yesterday. So I called another painter. He came in. I said, what do you need? Then, for whatever reason, I took somebody to the train station. The person forgot their laptop in the train station. So I got a phone call that they forgot their laptop in the train station. So I had to leave what I was doing, and I started driving straight back to the train station where I got to drop them in the morning. And then on my way there, the painter arrived, and I said, what do you need? He said, X amount of naira. I said, okay, you know what? I don't have enough money with me. I begged Comfort here. Give him 15,000. I'll transfer 15 from my account. I want you to go buy the paint, get started. I gave him the money. He brought the paint at 6 o'clock in the evening. And I also remember Collins was with me the other day. We wanted to fix the television in the halls, in the same gym. I said, okay, can you, do you know whether we need a bracket? Because because of all these TVs we bought, most of them came with brackets. So I said, can we use these brackets that are on this TV to install the other TV where we need to move it? He said he's not sure. So I said, okay, how much is the bracket? He said about 2,000, 2,500. I said, what are you going to do? He said, you know what? He will try those brackets. He was going to town to go and pick up the equipment. I said, why don't you buy the brackets and come? He says, no, he wants to come back, try the brackets in my office. If they don't work, he will go back to town to go and buy. So I said, Collins, how much do you earn per hour? I said, how much do you think they pay you per hour? He said, maybe 1,000 naira per hour. I said, okay, so let's assume it takes you 1 hour to test that bracket. You've already lost 1,000. Then you go to town to go and buy the bracket and come back. You've already lost another 2,000. You know what I mean? Another 2,000 going and coming. And then by the time you arrive, you've lost 3,000. That's your own money, not my own. Oh. I said, now you will do all that to buy a bracket for 2,000 when you can go right now and buy the bracket and know that the problem is solved. If you don't need it, we'll simply keep it for another day. I don't know. Because he didn't value his time. He didn't put any value on your... And that's what happens to us when we postpone things. We have no sense of the fact that time is the only thing we can't get back. Every other thing you can get back. You can get back money. In a sense, you can get back relationships. In a sense, you can get back many things. But when it comes to time, nobody, including the President of the United States, can ever stop time. We put absolutely no value on time. And that's why we can wait a whole year. Do you postpone things? Are you somebody who does that? I tell you, many years ago in Ghana, this lady, she's the secretary in an office. Secretary. Her daughter gets admission to university. And she looks at her boss and says, I need to go and improve myself. She told her boss, I want to go back to school. She and her daughter matriculated the same year. Her daughter said she was ashamed of her mother matriculating. So she had to act as if she didn't know her mother. But the woman would go to school with her. 3 years went, she graduated, her daughter graduated. She went back for a master's, another 2 years. 5 years later, she came out with her master's. Said she was going to go and do a PhD. This time she could do that one at her own pace. You know, in less than 7 years, she became the boss of the place where she was the secretary to. What was the difference? 7 years. Now, this is the problem. If you were 30 or 40 when she started that journey, by the time she got to 47, she was a PhD holder and the head of her unit where she was. You who were 40 and you were an accountant, 7 years later you become an accountant who is 47 with 7 years experience. Am I right? But both of you had exactly what? The same time. He says, can you visualize if you were in an environment where everything you said you were going to do, you did? Everything you said you were going to do, you did. I remember that thing when I was younger. You know, most of you won't believe that I went to Aberdeen in UI. My first 3 years of secondary school were Aberdeen. And the song we used to sing was Batayadu Koka. Batayadu Koka. We didn't Kawewa and our batters are not doing Kokoka. You know what Kokoka is? Brand new shoes that you're walking around with. You become successful. We didn't listen. And when we got to university, secondary school was still okay because most of us were boarders. You know, there were limits. You had to go to close at a certain time. You had to sleep. You couldn't dodge. The compound was full. When we got to university, we were like wild animals. Party today, party tomorrow. We won't read, we won't do anything. And yet we came out with third classes. We couldn't get jobs. Those who were serious got first classes and immediately got scholarships or got doors open for them abroad. Now they are earning 50 times, 30 times more than our people when we did it. Because we were not taught the fact that we have to be long-term thinkers. When I look at our country, I marvel how short-sighted most of us are, even as leaders. The president thinks 8 years if I'm lucky. Governor thinks 8 years if I'm lucky. Senator thinks how many years if I'm lucky. Everybody is always looking at what they can do, not what legacy they can leave behind. Am I pointing it in the wrong direction? Could you help me just move it to the next slide? Or is it hanging? All right, let's stop. Now, look at what. Do not copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you. I love this, one of my favorite interpretations of Romans chapter 12. Do not copy the behavior and customs, but let God transform you into a new person by doing what? Changing the way you think. The Bible says, be ye transformed by the removing of your mind. Huh? That's what we do in church. People are not allowed to think. Be ye transformed by the removing of your mind. People come to church, they're not allowed to put on their thinking cap. You know what was fascinating to me is the story of Joseph. This guy is the most spiritual guy you would ever meet. He can interpret dreams. He interpreted his own dream when he was a kid. He saw the sun, moon, and stars bow to him. He saw his brother's sheaves or whatever bow down to him, and he knew how to interpret them. He was good at it. He was so good that when he was in jail, the butler and the baker came and he interpreted their dreams. So it was a gift. He understood his gift. And so Pharaoh is in trouble, and I think, is it the butler or the baker? Which one? Was the baker? Which one died? The baker, yeah. It was the butler that was returned back to his position. Yeah, because I remember it was the birds eating his food, yeah. Now, it's very interesting that when the butler finally remembered Joseph, and Joseph gets in the presence of the king, he ridiculously tells the king it's 7 years of famine and it's 7 years of plenty. But you notice what he does? He removes that spiritual heart and puts it down. And then he carries an administrative thinking heart. The Bible doesn't say God told him. I don't know if I'm making any sense. He drops something and he takes something else and says, listen, okay, God has revealed this. What do we do with it? You know, Strive Masiwa just wrote an article. He says most entrepreneurs in Africa are complaining about government, saying things like, the government doesn't provide this, the government doesn't provide. He says, no, the job of an entrepreneur is to find and succeed where these things don't exist. Stop waiting for the government to change. And we're all doing it. I was with a group of artists in UI many years ago. Government doesn't support artists. Government doesn't. I said, excuse me, do artists even support artists? I said, they don't have a model to follow. They don't know what it is to form an association. They don't know what an association is going to look like. They don't even have an association to support. Let God transform you by changing the way you think. And one of the ways you have to stop thinking is that tomorrow is, you don't have tomorrow. Tomorrow is to nobody. I'm a perfectionist. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a perfectionist. It's a bad habit I have. You need to see how many times I will adjust the drawing. Let's see it. Sometimes it's just something that's not in the center, or something that just moved up. I will correct it. Then I will send updated. Somebody will say, what's the difference between the one you sent before? But one of the things I've learned is, you wait until you get things right, you will never get anything done. You will never achieve anything. Don't bring out your product as long as you have a heart to constantly improve it. Don't misunderstand me. Am I making sense?